So I really just wanted to get your take on some of the claims and the things that District Attorney Vasquez is saying. So mainly he's saying he plans to charge whether or not the county will cooperate. So if he's not getting information on whether or not the person's engaged with treatment, he will charge and assume that they have not been engaged. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, I would like this to be the beginning of a conversation that many commissioners have also asked that we bring the conversation of what is deflection and what is a successful deflection out from behind closed doors and open in front of the public in ways in which the public can engage. He is the district attorney. I respect his role and his that office's right to decide how they proceed on criminal charges. I don't want to armchair quarterback a role that I'm not qualified to take on. But I do have concerns about the feasibility of his approach, I'm saying that from the perspective of somebody who has long worked in the mental health and addiction policy field and am pretty aware of many of the substantial shortcomings of our system. And I think he is relying on a level of access that currently doesn't exist. So, what I am hoping, and I hope that he is willing to do, is let this be a starting place in his conversation, understanding his role and his authority in decisions related to charge making, but also understanding where we are today and the significant gaps. I could not honestly say that if somebody came to deflection today, I could guarantee getting them into treatment in a reasonable time frame and being able to provide the types of supports really necessary for that treatment to be successful. He wants a 90-day requirement to be able to prove that you've been successful. I don't know right now if that's realistic, depending on the situation an individual might be experiencing. For example, it is extremely difficult for people who are houseless to get into treatment and be successful in treatment when there is not housing that's accompanying that treatment. We currently can't offer everybody, even if we could get them into treatment, that would probably be outpatient, and they would not have a place to sleep. That's an almost impossible situation for someone. Also, treatment is not 30 days for everybody, depending on their unique situations. A lot of people, and we don't talk about this enough, but there is a significant number of people who experience what we call dual diagnosis, which is they have substance use disorder and they have untreated mental illness. And though individuals who have a dual diagnosis need specialized care, need to have both their mental health issues and their substance use issues addressed. And that is a specialized group of providers. And we're nowhere near having enough slots for that. So I want a conversation about what it would take to get to what is called treatment on demand. And what that really means is if someone were taken to deflection and we were going to say, hey, you have a choice here, you're going to go to jail or you're going to go to treatment. Today, that choice is not real because we could not actually offer that treatment. I want Multnomah County to get to a place where that is a possibility, that if somebody goes to deflection and they say, I want treatment, we are able within hours to get them to step one. But not only can we get them to step one, and for many people that might be detox, there has to be step two and three lined up for them. So we can't just offer detox and not offer treatment. That's very, very dangerous for people. So we have to be able to say, yeah, we're going to take you here. They're going to offer you medication assisted detox. When you have gone through that, you're guaranteed an appropriate level of treatment support, whatever that is for the individual. And we have to understand that to make treatment most likely to be successful, there has to be a time period after intense. You just let me know if I'm cutting out.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think I understand what you're getting at here. You know, that we don't have enough resources to get to people to step one, even. And even if we did get them to step one, there's step two and three that we still are lacking services in. Um, it sounds like, though, you are saying there is some discussion that should be had about whether or not this deflection center is doing what we want it to do. I know that, you know, Singleton, for example, had talked about making sure that we're at least giving people the offer of sober shelter spaces. Do we have enough of those or not? That's another question. But unless you're using that as one of the major resources, then do we really know whether that's a resource that we have or not? I think Vasquez was not part of the discussions. The previous DA was, even when it became clear that he would be the power in charge at that point, he still was not involved in the discussion, and that was brought up as a point of contention at the time. At this point, the county's faced with, you know, he could file charges regardless, and so I'm trying to figure out whether or not there will be opportunity for him to be involved in the discussion. He thinks there will. The chair is not answering me. And I don't know how much of this is, you know, up to you guys or not. Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I know that publicly, I think every commissioner has expressed a desire that these conversations be in public and that the commission play a role. Um, and I think that that's more true now than ever. I do think that dismissing the DA is not the collaborative approach we need. And I also think, you know, we're a year in. This is a completely appropriate time to look and say, now that we have a year's worth of data, how did it go? It is my perception that it did not lead enough people to substantially improve their life.
What are the flaws in your
I think there are
point of view?
several flaws. You know, Commissioner Singleton is completely right that our deflection center was not and is not integrated into our homeless services system. If 93% of people going through deflection are experiencing some stage of houselessness, why in the world would that not be integrated? So I think that's an obvious one. You know, I really believe if what's driving many people's houselessness includes substance use disorder, and that's what they've been picked up on, is a possession charge, that there needs to be a conversation about taking steps to address her substance use disorder. And so, you know, for me, I am open to a conversation around are there situations where we define success more directly in relationship to substance use disorder? I would like to. I'm not quite where DA Vasquez is because I am very knowledgeable that our system doesn't have the capacity to do that. And I'm also very thoughtful about recovery is not always a linear path. And I do think people fall off mid recovery and can come back. And I'm a person who wants to open the door multiple times. If people are saying, yeah, I do want to go back. Yes, I do want to do this. I'm more open than going to punitive. But I don't think we can have a real conversation. And I want to have a real conversation about how deflection can lead more people into recovery. You can't have a sticker carrot approach when the carrot side doesn't exist. So I am actually hopeful that this might spur the level of support necessary to get Multnomah County to say, we are going to build enough of a treatment system where we can say, okay, these are your choices, and it's real. Because it's not fair to say to somebody, go through treatment or except actually we don't have treatment appropriate for you. Well, then that's just jail.
So other counties who also, I mean, across Oregon, there is a struggle for access to treatment, and sometimes in rural counties that's even more the case. But you look at a place like Jackson County, and I will say Jackson County has very high rates of drug arrest. They also struggle with access to treatment. Their requirements for successful deflection are much more stringent than Multnomah County's. It's you need to make 10 calls to one of the referrals, and I think they said 30% of those need to be a treatment provider. So, I mean, you have to make a significant amount of tries to get into treatment. Yep. You can't just make one call, hey, put me on the outpatient list, and then if they never call you back, or if they do call you back, then call it good. So, I mean, their requirements are more stringent. They do, take into account, I think one could argue that there may be a shortage of treatment aspects, but they're pushing that person to at least give it a fair try. And they have very high rates of successful completion. So I wonder if there is somewhere in between where it's like, yeah, we do need to increase the requirements for successful deflection, and we can't just let people walk right out of the treatment center and say, okay, you're good, without even taking an assessment.
I don't understand why assessment isn't baseline for deflection. Like, that needs to happen, period. In my mind, I also feel like in order for people to be successful, especially as we build a system and we cannot guarantee treatment on demand, then there has to be an agreement to engage with your case manager so that there is somebody working with you to get you through the process. I think one thing that a lot of people don't think about is, again, a significant number, I would guess in the 30% of people going through deflection, maybe higher, also have a severe mental illness. So their ability to navigate bureaucratic systems is going to be limited. So if we really want to help somebody and say, hey, there's a consequence if you don't do this, we've got to acknowledge what the challenges they're experiencing are right now. And some of that is you can't give somebody 10 numbers and say good luck when they have their executive functioning is impaired, where their ability to track conversations, days, times, appointments. So I think we got to be real about the totality of the population that is coming to deflection. Hey there, sorry about that. We got to be real about who is at deflection, what do they need to be successful, what is missing in our system, but also, and here's where I agree with my colleagues, and I agree to some degree with DA Vasquez, is I don't believe I happen to have been working for an organization during the passage of 4002. I remember it was the intention of the legislature that if we were going to offer an alternative to facing criminal charges, that alternative was a meaningful intervention. That is the conversations I remember hearing and being a part of. I do not believe that is what Multnomah County is doing right now. I do not believe what we are requiring for deflection is creating a meaningful intervention for people who are in crisis. Like, I think that there's something to say. There is a difference, and I'm not condoning, but what somebody is doing in the privacy of their home that is not spilling onto our streets, that has not led to somebody being unable to take care of their basic needs, is one thing. It is entirely different when somebody is now at a place where they are unhoused, have unmet health needs, and are coming to the attention of law enforcement. That is not a sustainable reality for that person or for our community. So I don't think it's inhumane to say this is a change moment for you. This is a change moment. I want to offer you a path. And let me help you through, be there with you, to make that change. And that's the conversation I want us to be having. I look forward to Vasquez. We have talked about these issues. I look forward to working with the chair. But we got to do this in public. And we got to get real about what's really happening on our streets and what is or is not leading to change. Because these are people's lives. And we are not talking about, a party drug. We're not talking about personal use of marijuana. We are talking overwhelmingly about methamphetamine, and not old school meth, like very, very powerful methamphetamine and fentanyl. And these are lethal or debilitating drugs. And I think we got to get very real about the consequences of long-term use and what that does to an individual. And is it humane to not be able to actually offer people a real path out of that? And I am totally dedicated to that. And some of that is going to be creating hard choices for people.
Do you think like a meaningful solution in terms of engagement? You talked about a caseworker. We don't have the resources. You said that. So, like, how many visits to a caseworker? What would the requirement look like in your mind? I know we're not setting anything in stone here, but like,
but it's,
if you don't answer your caseworker on a regular basis,
I think you got to really understand and making sure that the access is there. And that is on the county. Yes, the state plays a role, but I really believe the county has got to step into this space to make sure when somebody says yes to treatment, that's not going to take weeks. That has to be ideally hours, realistically days. Like we got to be there and follow up with somebody. For people who are a dual diagnosis, we have to be real. They're not going to come to an appointment. That's an unrealistic expectation. So when I say you're engaging in case management, that means okay, 11 o'clock, that's when we've got a detox bed. Where are you right now? I'm coming to get you. One of the things that has to change, we're not driving people to their first whatever it is. If it's detox, if it's an appointment, if it's homeless services, stop expecting people to navigate complex bureaucracies when they are in a behavioral health crisis. That has to end. So if we're only averaging 2 people a day, we absolutely can get in a car and take them. That has to happen. We absolutely have to go out and find people and get them to their first step. We got to call and make sure step 2 is ready as step 1 rolls. That to me is engaging in case management, is that we're going to walk the journey with you so that you don't get lost and fall off. That's really what I'm talking about.
Do you expect that these conversations will actually occur, or do you see the chair standing in the way of that? I mean, I know that there was a lot of conversation about nobody else is involved with that, and she's the only one, and there was frustration from commissioners. There's a new commission now. What is this going to look like?
I do think potentially moves like this from the DA kind of force some of these conversations to the public. She's not wrong when she says that 4002 does dictate a table. It does. I don't believe that is in place of elected decision-making bodies. I actually believe that table should be bringing recommendations to the commission, and the DA needs to have signed off on that. So I can't speak for her. We have spoken. She knows that the commission is interested in deflection feeling more meaningful. I don't know if we're in alignment on what that means. I think she's open to those conversations since I've had that conversation with her. I don't know. I would somewhat doubt that she's where DA Vasquez is. And let's be very real. His proposal would be incredibly expensive because we would have a surge in our jail population, of which it's not currently funded. to do. We also don't currently offer treatment in jail. We do support people's detox, we do prepare them for treatment, but we don't have treatment in our jails. That is well worth a conversation about, but like today, that's not there. So, his proposal does have significant budget ramifications. So does what I'm proposing. What I'm proposing, radically increasing access to treatment and recovery housing, that also has some budget implications. Mine can be funded through Medicaid, depending on how DA Vasquez is framed. It might be, it might not be eligible. But these conversations need to be in the public, and the public has a right to weigh in on this. This really will impact hundreds of people. Our providers need to be at the table saying what is possible, what isn't, what's, cutting edge in the field, because there have been a lot of changes. I am hoping, I can't obviously speak for DA Vasquez. I am hoping his announcement is the beginning of him being willing to have these conversations, but also saying, hey, I have a role here. I am the DA. You don't
That
get to
sounds like what he
decide.
was saying. Like I
Yeah.
talked to his
He's
spokesperson
right.
today, and he was like, "We're expecting to have conversations with the county. We're not expecting otherwise.
Yeah.
We're not
And he's
expecting
right.
that
And
the information will be denied."
he has every right to be at the table and have a real voice because he is our district attorney and he was elected. And so he makes charging decisions. I'm hoping, and I've talked to him, I don't think he's unreasonable about these issues. I'm hoping that, we can have a conversation about pushing to expand access to treatment and access to recovery housing, and that it be in partnership with his approach, and it really be very much based in recovery science, so that we are maximizing the chances of people entering long-term recovery. And I'm completely on board for that work. I will show up anytime, anywhere, with anybody that is ready to figure out how we get there, because that is what we need. We have to do better. And I ran for office to fix our behavioral health system. That is the issue that I am most motivated by. And any approach that would make it more of a treatment or jail requires that we fix and improve our treatment system. And I'm like, sign me up. I'm there. Let's do this work. It's not free. It's worth it. I have so many people in my life who are decades into their recovery. It is very possible. It is real. It is hard. It is not always a straight path, but I believe in it. And I believe this is an opportunity for our community. And this is DA Vasquez's, waving, saying, hey, I want to do better for people, then let's do this.
Thank you so much for your time on this. I appreciate it. I don't know if this is in your bio. I've read it before, but it's not coming to me right now. What was your previous or current role with behavioral health?
I was the
Oh man, you're
public
cutting out again.
policy director at Disability Rights Oregon, of severe mental illness. But I've also for a long time been involved in a recovery community and had the pleasure of representing recovery mentors and recovery counselors. And I really care deeply about not hope on people. I think sometimes people think these are lost causes. I know people who, you look at pictures of them in the depths of their addiction, you would not believe where they're at now. I don't want us to lose. The recovery is real.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday. This will air tonight, and then I'm sure we'll have follow-ups in the future.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.